Mountains to all the Mesilla Valley, reaching all of New Mexico. Broadcasting live from the Las Cruces studios, bringing you the issues that matter and the topics that count. Telling it like it is. It's the Mike Tellez Show. And now here's your host, Mike Tellez.
Hello and welcome back to the Mike Tellez Show. My name is Mike Tellez. Today we have a good friend of mine, retired captain from the state police, Roman Jimenez. We're bringing him in on Zoom to talk a little bit about the incident that happened several weeks back on the freeway. And Roman?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too.
How you doing, man?
Good to be with you. I'm doing really well. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Hey, Roman, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Okay, Mike. Well, I'm born and raised in Santa Fe. I'm a native New Mexican. I was raised with 3 brothers in a small house in Santa Fe and grew up there. Got into law enforcement pretty early. I started in corrections right out of high school. I did that for a couple years, came on with the state police at the age of 21. And I worked with the state police in a variety of different functions, most of it in investigations. And I moved to Las Cruces back in 2006 with my family. I have 2 children that are grown. So I've been doing law enforcement my whole
Roman, you have a lot of training.
Yes,
I
sir.
saw your bio, and man, you've got some serious training in there.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it. That's all courtesy of the New Mexico State Police and the great people and the great training staff they have. And
I saw the FBI training.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was at the FBI National Academy in 2011 with a great group of people from all over the world, leadership in law enforcement in different cities from all over the world.
Wow! And how long were you with the state police?
I was with the state police for approximately 22 years, Mike.
That is a long run, and you've seen a lot of things in your time, huh?
Absolutely.
Roman, we're all familiar with the incident that took place with the state police officer from Deming, where he got shot and killed, and it was a horrifying video, and it was tragic. I saw the video, I reviewed the video again, and I was wondering, was that a drug-related incident?
That I don't know for sure, Mike.
That hasn't come out yet?
Yeah, I believe everything's still under investigation and, being retired and kind of out of the game. I'm not privy to all of the details of what exactly happened and what led up to that particular incident. I'm not sure. I haven't even seen the video of the actual state police officer, Jarrett, our hero and our warrior that was out there protecting us.
Did you know him?
I did not know him, Mike. He started around the same time when I was leaving.
So he was fairly new there, huh?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
yes, sir.
God. You know what? It breaks our heart. There's not a person I've seen or talked to that is not devastated and heartbroken over the entire incident. I kept seeing where Homeland Security had been following that officer or that gentleman in the truck.
I'm not too sure what all information you have. All I have available to me and that I've seen is what's been listed in the media and in the newspaper.
Right.
And that the officer was assisting Homeland Security.
Right.
Apparently.
I mean, assisting, yes.
Yes, sir.
So they certainly knew who he was.
It seems that way. It seems like Homeland Security had at least a decent idea of who it was they were either surveilling or who it was that they were looking to make a stop on that particular day.
His rap sheet is crazy.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
It is insane. It started as a young kid he started. But you know that with a person, he was a notorious criminal. I mean, he was just about a lifelong criminal. And a few questions I have is, for one, with somebody that dangerous, why would only one state policeman pull him over?
That's a great question, Mike. in my experience, well, not only in my experience, but in my training to start with, as I started with the state police, we were taught patrol operations and high-risk patrol operations and how you needed to conduct a traffic stop on somebody that was dangerous. If you knew that person was dangerous, now that's what we don't know. We don't know exactly what the officer knew at the time, but we know that there's certain procedures that an officer follows when conducting a high-risk traffic stop, and that includes backup, that includes drawing out your weapon, being at a safe distance. And I know that not only from going through the training, but also helping and providing that training to officers as an instructor. And so again, I'm not privy to everything that happened there. I'm not even sure if the officer knew exactly what he was dealing with. And so those are the big factors that go into determining what was happened? The best. Yeah, well, first of all, what happened? Second of all, what was the best procedure to follow in that particular instance? What did the officer know? When did he know it? What did Homeland Security know? When did they know it? When did they request assistance? Who did they go through to request that assistance? Was a supervisor aware with the state police that was able to make a judgment call at the time? If not, why not? Where was Homeland Security agents, were they following close enough to provide backup as well? Or were they at a distance in another place where they weren't able to provide that? So there's a lot of factors that go into this, and unfortunately, I don't have any of those.
And it
details.
usually takes quite a long time to come to the conclusion, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And unlike some of the mainstream media and law enforcement, we try to make sure we have all of the facts in place before we, can come up with a conclusion and make a decision on what happened. And so from my training and experience, it's very, very important to have every single detail from every single angle and all of the facts before we can, before a person can make a good determination on what exactly happened out there. And I'm sure in the weeks and in the months and in even the years to come, there are going to be investigators, there's going to be attorneys, there's going to be a lot of people sorting through all of this information to determine what exactly happened and could it have been done better? And if it could have been, how and what additional training needs to be provided to officers so that we can ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Wow. Hey, then this guy, of course, he wasn't from New Mexico. It looked like he was from California.
Okay.
And based on his rap sheet, my goodness, I can't believe that guy was even out of jail. He didn't have 3 strikes, he had about 6 strikes.
Wow. And that's very indicative of our broken judicial system. What people a lot of times in the public don't realize is that officers, we perform a certain function, and we perform a certain function in that judiciary and due process that's allowed for an individual that's been charged with a crime. But a lot of times, since the police and the law enforcement are the people that they see the most, they a lot of times lay the blame on law enforcement. So for instance, law enforcement sees a person that's been involved in a long history of criminal activity in a certain neighborhood. Law enforcement targets that individual for months of an investigation, serves warrants on that house, arrests that individual, takes him to jail. And after a preliminary hearing in a week or 2, he's released on bail, and he's back out on the street doing the exact same thing he was doing before until trial comes along, and then that trial happens. And a lot of times there's a plea agreement because the district attorneys and the public defenders are inundated with work, with a tremendous amount of caseload. And this individual ends up pleading to something, a lesser charge, and they're on probation, and they're right back out on the street doing exactly what they did before.
Wow. That has got to be one of the more frustrating things about being a law enforcement officer.
Absolutely. It's frustrating to law enforcement, especially when they're out there working so hard and so diligently and putting their lives on the line, like this tremendous officer did that particular day, going out there knowing he has a family back home to take a dangerous person off the street And to do all that, knowing that this individual, probably with a criminal history of that nature, should have been in prison a long time ago and never to see a light of day again. And so we create this environment, we create this situation, and criminals are very intelligent, especially at this level, in the cartel levels. If this guy was involved with a cartel, he has a great deal of experience and he knows exactly what he's getting into. So for instance, if you're gonna pick a jurisdiction, a city, a state, an area that you're gonna be performing criminal activity in, you know those jurisdictions very well, and you know those jurisdictions are not as severe on criminals as other jurisdictions are. So if I'm committing a crime, then maybe California is the place I'd like to do it at. Maybe New Mexico is an ideal place to do it at as well, because we aren't as tough on crime as, say, going to Texas and doing this, going to Oklahoma and doing this, going to Utah and doing these crimes. So these criminals are smart and they're intelligent. They know where the jurisdictions are that are providing them with lax laws, that are providing them with sanctuary to perpetuate their criminal activity. And you know, it's an unfortunate thing because the only people that suffer are the public.
Yep, unfortunately, you can't help but notice all the brazen attacks that have been happening lately against law enforcement.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I wonder that, do you think that part of it could be a result of the issues we faced this last summer?
Yeah, Mike, I believe that has a lot to do with where we've gotten to as it relates to the public's perspective and perception of law enforcement.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, the things that get national attention are the things and the issues that are the negative issues.
Villainizing the police.
Yeah, absolutely. So when an officer is involved in a negative incident, it's newsworthy. It's what the media uses to gain ratings and to put out there and to play on the public emotions. And so unfortunately, on a daily basis, we don't hear of or see a lot of what law enforcement does that is good on a daily basis. So for instance, if you take the paradox of what happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd, which we can agree is a very tragic incident, which we can all agree that the police officers in the particular case were wrong. Mm-hmm. They deserve to answer for that. They are answering for that. They were arrested. They were charged. They're in jail. So when there's an outcry and there's this passionate and emotional plea for justice, we have to first look and say, well, justice is being served. It's due process. It's what's allowed to every citizen, and these cops are answering for their crimes. Now, the paradox that I see is that you have these officers and people that feel bad for this particular individual that died, and justifiably so. But then we look at, in those riots that happened subsequent to that incident, and we see police officers that were killed as a result of serving their community, protecting life and property. We had an officer that was off duty, or that was retired, that had served 30 years in law enforcement. He was a black man as well. He was out there serving his community and was shot and killed in a cold-blooded fashion. And the media did not
He was insignificant in the media, and that was sad. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about what we see going on. It used to be nationwide, now it's right here at home with the Mike Tellez Show. My name is Mike Tellez.
Horizon Granite is here. We'll come to you to customize your kitchen and bathroom with beautiful countertops and cabinets. Find out more at horizongranite.com. Call us at 575-650-3180.
Horizon Granite is here.
It's here.
Make yourself a beautiful home.
Hi, I'm Ray Bamberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
If we want to improve America's healthcare system, let's start by improving the health of Americans. Despite the best doctors, hospitals, and medical advancements, Americans are not as healthy as they should be. We spend too much on treatment and not enough on wellness and prevention. We need a system based on primary care. When patients have a medical home and a long-term relationship with a doctor, the result is a longer, healthier life and reduced medical costs for everyone. Let's make America a place where health is primary.
They've stormed beaches and freed countries. They've raised our flag and our hope. They've been called leathernecks. They've been called devil dogs. But above all, they're called Marines.
Welcome back to the Mike Tellez Show. My name is Mike Tellez. We are joined via Zoom with retired state police Captain Roman Jimenez. Roman, we're back. Roman, I want to go into a little bit more about what we were talking about before the break, about incredible disrespect for law enforcement. And, you know, I'm just wondering, how can we possibly recruit police officers when the climate is like this? It has got to be hard. What do you think?
Unbelievably hard. It's unbelievably difficult. It's unbelievably hard because the reality of it is there is really not the incentive to be a police officer these days, especially here in New Mexico. You look at some of the legislation that's being passed or attempting to be passed in our legislative session that to me is just mind-boggling, passed by legislators and lawmakers that really have no clue what law enforcement does. They're pandering to special interest groups, the ACLU and other organizations that really don't understand what it is that they're doing to law enforcement. It's already in a tough and a dire situation with what police officers have to deal with. And now they want to take away qualified immunity, and they want to remove that, and they want to make it more difficult for police officers to do that job because now they're going to be personally liable. They're reevaluating and doing things with the laws that allow for officers to use reasonable force, as it is as applicable through court cases like Graham versus Connor through the Supreme Court that outlines what it is to be reasonable in a deadly force situation. And they're trying to take out the word reasonable and make it necessary as the wording, which it totally takes away from the, I guess, the rapid succession in which events take place in a deadly force situation. And it takes away a lot of the ability to make that decision for a police officer. So, you know, these types of things are making it especially difficult on law enforcement agencies to recruit people because you really have a difficult time making it a appealing occupation anymore.
Mm-hmm. And you know, an incident like that has got to be, I mean, it has got to happen so quick that if you're not fast on your feet, you lose your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in this particular case, what they're trying to do is what the Supreme Court has told us through their own, you know, very careful review of the information and their professional adjudication of this particular case in Graham versus Connor, they're telling us that it's important that we look at a use of force and a deadly force situation from the perspective of a reasonable officer with the same training and experience as that officer has when he is faced with that particular situation. So if you want to get in there and analyze an officer for what he did in a particular situation, you have to do that with the ability to be cognizant of what is reasonable for that officer at that particular time, without the luxury of 2020 hindsight to be able to go back and say, well, he could have done this, he could have done that. And that's exactly what the legislature is doing here in New Mexico. They're trying to pigeonhole and put all use of force situations in one particular little tranche to make it seem that everything has a perfect succession and has to be done exactly a certain way. So for instance, an officer feels that his life or the life of somebody else is in danger, or they're serving a search warrant or an arrest warrant, say. The legislature is trying to pass legislation that says that you can no longer take firearms into that house to protect yourself or other people, other officers that are going into that house. So what they're basically saying is, we're putting officers at a tactical disadvantage.
Wow.
And that's not something that we do in law enforcement. When you conduct a traffic stop, you do it from a tactical advantage situation. You do it from the rear, you do it in a position that is safe, you do it as an approach that is safe, you have visual on the individual, their hands, the things that present dangers. You go into a house and you serve a search warrant. We want to know everything about that individual. What's his criminal history? Does he have weapons in the house? Has he had a potential for violence in the past? And then we want to go in with a tactical advantage, which is we have firearms, we have other available uses of force available, less than lethal options that are available as well. So the legislation that they're putting out, not only does it hinder law enforcement, but I would even venture to use the word it destroys law enforcement in the state of New Mexico.
Wow.
And what's happening in Albuquerque, I'm sorry, Mike, I was just going to finish with this. What's happening in Albuquerque, what's happening in Las Cruces, what's happening in many communities around the state has been a result of officers being handcuffed through consent decrees, through public outcries, through various political motives to keep officers from reacting to situations in the best possible manner.
Wow. So do we need to call our legislator? The session's going. Is it too late? Could we still call in and try to get some of that ridiculous stuff squashed?
Absolutely. And here's what I would further state is not only important to call your legislators, but it's important to call your governor. Call the governor's office. She's the one ultimately responsible for signing this ridiculous law.
My goodness.
And here's the thing, Mike, here's the frustrating thing. I was in the environment with the state police and was able to see the protection that's afforded to the governor's office. The governor walks around with armed, trained security everywhere she goes.
Wow.
Okay? I'm not talking about just a few places. When she's sleeping at the mansion, we have security on her 24 hours a day.
Wow.
Okay, now, isn't that ironic that an individual who is a beneficiary of such magnificent, well-trained men and women with firearms providing her security would take those tools away from law enforcement to provide that same security for Mike Tellez, for Roman Jimenez, for our wives and our children that don't have that same luxury.
Exactly. You know what? Maybe she ought to be the first one to have her security not have weapons. If she believes that's the right thing to do, maybe it's time for her to, say, you know what? I don't need an officer, even in uniform, just no weapons, no nothing. I wonder if she's willing to do that.
That's an interesting question, and maybe a viewer should pose that question to her. Somebody should pose that question. And I would further state, don't take the weapons away from the officers because they need them, but take the officers that have those weapons and put them back in a position to where they can be better used for the public. If that's
Exactly.
if that is the stance that she is taking, that's the stance that stance that the legislature is taking. For instance, Representative Candelaria here in Albuquerque, he's the guy pushing this legislation. One of them that's saying that law enforcement is basically we're the bad guys.
Oh,
but yet he's the one that calls us to his
It's
house
sickening.
when he needs law enforcement. They call. They don't.
Yeah, they sure do.
And they don't wait for a dangerous situation. They will call law enforcement if they hear a loud sound outside.
Wow.
And,
it sounds so hypocritical.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so people need to we need to get on the phone, man, because, our state is not getting any safer.
Absolutely.
It's getting worse and worse. And now they want to take away the police, take away a lot of what they need to survive.
Absolutely.
Wow,
Well, look at what happened in Minneapolis.
Yes.
There was this huge movement to defund the police.
Yeah. Oh my
take the
goodness.
police out off the streets, remove their ability to do their job. Now what's happened? Now they're trying to put forth a $6.5 million budget to recruit new police officers. They had over 200 officers that have either retired or resigned as a result of what they've done and putting those officers' lives in danger. And now they're spending $6.5 million to recruit less qualified and less experienced officers because they lost all the ones that they had.
And hey, people are going to start retiring. Why go through this if I can retire?
Absolutely.
Roman,
absolutely.
We got so much to talk to. I just want to ask, can you come back next week so that we can continue this? There's a lot people need to hear.
Absolutely.
We definitely need to call the governor. We need to call the legislatures, and we need to get on the ball, man. This is our security at stake right here, and it just seems terrible that we have to go through this. And next week when we come back, I want you to tell somebody how when they get pulled over, what to do. But we've run out of time, and I'm going to tell you, there's so much to talk about. And man, I appreciate what you do. Hey, I appreciate you as a person. You're a good friend of mine. And I want to thank you very much for joining us today. And this is Mike Tellez with the Mike Tellez Show. Thank you very much.